Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand. Brian Schaaf joined in studio. We've been doing so much via Zoom. It's so good to have live people here in studio. Chef Tony Biggs, meat scientist Diana Clark. Guys, how you doing?
Excellent.
Outrageous.
Nice. It's funny to see you, Tony. Usually it's on the Zoom screen now.
I know.
I feel
right?
like
do I look different?
you look taller.
Have I aged a little bit? Or
I think you.
Have I dry aged a little bit?
do you have a little funk about you?
Well, yeah. Good to see you.
Good seeing you, Diana. All good on the baby home front?
Yes, we are making it. Still no sleep, but it's great. It got baby smiles, so that makes it makes it worth it.
Is that an even trade though?
I think so. I mean, you start honestly. They just when that smile, they're just so stinking cute. And they wake up at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. But then they smile in the morning. You're like, God, you got me again.
I don't know. My kids are 12 and 9. It's well weared off. It's not an even trade anymore.
See, Ida Marie still got it a little bit, so we'll see how that goes when they get older.
And I'm a grandfather, so I got you all beat.
That's right. Tony can sleep through anything. So we're golden. Joining us here in studio, actually, this is kind of rad as we continue to evolve as a podcast. It's our first 4-microphone setup, right? I feel like we're entering into Beastie Boys territory here, right? Between the three of them and the producer and all that, right? Right, we have our producer, social media guru, lacrosse coach, kind of, you name it, master fixer of all things social media. Paige Clayton, how you doing, Paige?
Hey, guys. Good to actually be on this side of the podcast.
Yeah, it's nice to have you.
Right? Well, we wanted to have you come in here because as this episode unravels, our listeners are going to hear a lot more of you. So we want to make sure we we give this its just diligence leading in. Paige is actually leading the interview portion of today's podcast with Chef Peter Rosenberg, who, if that sounds familiar, go back to season 2. There's an episode all about biltong that we talked about. Chef Peter is, he's the maestro of the biltong. He's actually from Rhodesia, which turned into Zimbabwe for those of you who are geography buffs, which biltong is just something that they've always done over there. But the two of you took a journey down to Buffalo Gap, Texas recently to talk with Tom and Lisa Perini, James Beard Award winners, Texas as it gets. Before we roll into this, Paige, can you talk to us a little bit about that, right? You're an Ohio kid going into Texas, right? I mean, was your jaw on the floor pretty much the whole time?
Well, I'll say it was a very different experience from the Dallas airport to Buffalo Gap, Texas. Buffalo Gap has a population of probably around 400 and some. So going from what I thought Texas was to seeing Texas was very different. I actually called my dad the week before and I was like, Dad, I'm going to Texas. And he was like, what part, kid? It's a really big state. And I was like, I think it's just outside of Dallas. And then I realized I actually had a layover in Dallas. So it wasn't as close to Dallas as I thought. But the Perinis are awesome. Tom and Lisa were awesome. It was a great conversation. Super kind people in Texas. Big-hearted people. Really learned a lot. Excellent food. We were down there because Perini Ranch Steakhouse actually won our Legendary Steakhouse Award this year from Certified Angus Beef. And I can confirm the steak
legendary.
is legendary. It was amazing. I came home a couple of pounds heavier, but it was well worth it. Whatever you got to do for the brand, right?
That's an even trade. As we look at the Perinis, you mentioned there were our Legendary Steakhouse, which our awards are always cool. They have been recognized by the James Beard Foundation as an American classic, which every year at the Beard Awards, I've been to 3 or 4 of them. That's always my favorite category of restaurants because those are those restaurants that have withstood the test of time, right? They're the ones that have continued to persevere, some through like world wars, some through, economic downturns, Great Depression. They're still doing their thing. They are the embodiment of what American cuisine is, this old school steakhouse. Chef Tony, that old school steakhouse, man, you're from Boston originally, Boston area. So much of American history goes back there. What is it like for you, for somebody who has traveled the globe? Obviously you grew up in that area. You grew up in America, right? But to see these steakhouses, these American institutions still going on, is there ever going to be a time when that's not in fashion?
I don't think so. I've lived in different countries all over the world, and what I notice about those folks is they want American. And what is more American than apple pie? It's a really good steak, and how we prepare the steaks as well. I've been to other countries where I've had meals where it's not so great. It's because of the training. They don't know the American way. And this was brought up, by our forefathers from Texas and Oklahoma and the Midwest that knew how to cook beef, like open fires, right? And so that's why we're the leaders in the steakhouse. And now you go around the country, you go around the world, and you can see different steakhouses like Outback. Okay, that's a brand, but you know what? You can find it in Japan, you can find it in the Middle East, Asia, wherever, and they're just popping up everywhere. So it's amazing to see that we're still going really strong with our foundation of meat.
Excellent. Diane, how about for you from a meat science standpoint? You meet with a lot of chefs, right? It seems like in a day and age, everybody's looking for what doesn't anybody else know about, right? We throw out all these cuts, some that you can't actually get your hands on unless you're willing to buy a big piece and cut it down into little pieces, right? Places like this, though, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah,
Is there something heartwarming about that?
It is, and I am definitely a person. I wish I was born in the 50s, or actually I should say teenage years in the 50s. I would love it. So stepping back into a steakhouse is like stepping back in time. There's one right outside of the suburbs of Chicago that they haven't changed a thing since about 1960, and I go in there and it feels right. You feel like you're living in your grandparents' shoes, and it's just neat to kind of see where they've been. And that's the cool part, too. You walk into Perini Ranch and you think, how many other people have actually dined and sat here? And anniversaries celebrated, engagements, and all that. These just milestones all under this one roof is really cool to see.
Outstanding. Well said. On that note, we are going to take a break, and we are going to send this all the way down to Buffalo Gap, Texas. It's funny, Paige, you said, just outside of Dallas. In Texas terms, 2.5 hours, that really is right down the right. That really is just down the street in Texas terms. So Buffalo Gap, we'll get more into this when we come back if you guys wouldn't mind sticking around. But for the next, we'll say half an hour, 40 minutes or so, enjoy meeting Tom and Lisa Perini from the iconic Perini Steakhouse in Buffalo Gap, Texas, with our pal Chef Peter Rosenberg and Paige Clayton, guru of all things social media and now master interviewer. We'll be back in a few.
Alrighty, back here on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the Certified Angus Beef brand. You've got Paige and Chef Peter coming to you from Buffalo Gap, Texas. We have taken a road trip. I promise, guys, I am the same Paige that Brian likes to reference in many of his episodes. I have stepped out from behind the velvet curtain this time, and Peter and I have gone wild. We've taken the podcast on the road. So stick with us here for the next couple of minutes as we interview some legendary steakhouse icons, and let's talk food and let's talk Texas. So our guests today are the embodiment of all that is grand about Texas cuisine. As the founders and namesakes of the iconic Perini Ranch, located in little old Buffalo Gap, Texas, about 200 miles west of Dallas, or as in Texas terms, just down the road, their steakhouse has achieved just about every honor that can be bestowed upon such an establishment, including being featured in countless glossy publications, The Today Show, Good Morning America, and most recently, as one of Oprah's favorite things from 2021. They've been tabbed an American classic by the James Beard Foundation, signifying them as one of the great American institutions in the food world, cooked on the White House lawn feeding Congress, and served as representatives for the U.S. Meat Export Federation as true ambassadors of American cuisine to the globe. In the words of their founder, they are trying to be Texas. They are Texas. Please welcome to the podcast two of the most genuine humans you'll ever meet, the legendary Tom and Lisa Perini. Welcome to the show, guys.
I'm going to say welcome to the ranch.
Welcome to the ranch.
And Tom, I think legendary means old. I'm pretty sure.
I kind of took it.
I'm pretty sure that's what it means.
Well, let me correct that. Legendary means classic, and you guys just do it right. You've done it right from the beginning, and you continue to do it right.
Well, we try hard. Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Some days go better than others.
Peter, why don't you start off and tell us how you know these guys? Let's walk down memory lane a little bit.
Love to.
Be a little careful.
Tread with caution.
We've already had photographs out earlier.
I think one of the funnest things out is I was chef of hotel chef, and we owned our own restaurant or catering operation called Texas Food Creations and Catering. And the Texas Beef Council, U.S. Meat Export, used to use me as a consultant, as they did Tom, and we used to be able to pair together in different entities and travel all over the world, and also to the Beef Council location, and bring people here to the Perini Ranch, and it was like magic. When you walked through the doors here, it was a memory that you never forgot. And I think that's what the legacy is all about, is like you created a memory of both flavors and events and education and just memories. And people left your best friends forever, and they still communicate with each other. And Rosemary said to me today, that's my wife, said, you know, those were some of the funnest times we ever had.
And great memories. And just like you were saying, we did travel a lot, and in the early days in doing this, and that was very important to the beef industry and how we're doing it. So we do have some fun stories, and some we probably shouldn't tell. But it's with the steakhouse, the word experience is very important. It's not only our quality of beef and how we prepare it, and the experience you have when you're having it, dining, is the key.
So one of my funnest memories, I guess, was at Watt Matthews Ranch. I've been a chef, done big events, executed big events, weddings and so on. And here's Tom in the middle of nowhere, out on a ranch. And 1,000 guests have been invited from all over the place. And it's a ranch outside, no tents, no cover, no nothing, under the stars type deal. And they're going to reenact the Fandango, a Texas heritage history storytelling live. And all these people, it's the party to go to, the event of the year to be at, coming in from all over Texas, flying in, driving in, and it's about a half a day's ride from the street to get to the actual ranch house.
You're right.
How big it is.
You're right.
Right.
It is this big ranch.
And here's Tom cooking prime ribs out in the middle of nowhere, big pots of beans and corn and a chuck wagon. And from a chef standpoint, this was magic. Tom, tell us about that.
Well, and it still is. I mean, the chuck wagons are romantic. I don't know if they're romantic when you're working in one, but from other people watching you, and they think, oh, this is great. But a chuck wagon really is a food wagon, the early food trucks. And that's where you keep all your equipment. But so you have a chuck wagon and big cast iron pots, and you're using wood for your fires. And for example, when we were doing prime rib, we had this great big pits, and we'd burn the wood down, mesquite wood, down to coals, and shovel it in. And it was a long process, and it was good. But there was one thing with Mr. Matthews. He wanted his meat, I must say, medium rare. He really wanted it rare. And so I had to cook a little more, but he didn't want it. He was very particular about it. And but it was fun, and we cooked a lot of beef and served it to a lot of people.
That's awesome. What a great story.
It is a great story.
I love that. I love the history. But,
And and just thinking about it, I mean, this was a long time ago, and we're still telling the stories, and they still have the Fandangle, and I don't know if they're having any kind of cooking with it now, but in the early days, it was real. And that was very important.
And the Fandangle started in the 1930s, excuse me. And so that history of that party had gone on for decades. And it was the most sought after invitation in Texas. Really cool.
I think one of the coolest things about food, and this is sitting at this table over here and reminiscing on this, is it's the storytelling.
absolutely.
And you didn't have to say a word to anybody about anything. That memory, I bet everybody's told that story 100 times of
I agree.
driving up, and all of a sudden, there you saw Longhorn on the one side, a table, a chuck wagon, and people sitting down enjoying themselves to a meal that they never expected. Prime rib, no less, for 1,000 people in a ranch outside under the sun.
The thing is, the chuck wagon is known by cowboys and people who've been on ranches as the kitchen, and that's so when you're saying, I'll meet you at the wagon, you know exactly what it means, and everybody comes to the wagon. So that's how we use that. You know, we had the dinner bell, and we'd ring it, and all of a sudden, 1,000 people start migrating down, which, you know, to a cook or a chef, that's kind of a little
Scary sight, isn't it?
A little nerve-wracking.
A little intimidating.
But it worked. You know, a chuck wagon normally served 12 to 15 people, so 1,000 is a little.
It's really pushing the limits.
But it was fun. It was fun, and good memories, and we still are telling the stories after all those years.
And we're still catering with the chuck wagon.
I had to watch all the time, though. We had these big cast iron pots, and Peter was eyeing them. And I said, Peter, now stay away from these. And he'd be over, like with a measuring tape. I said, Peter, don't measure the pot. I had to watch all the time.
I was thinking maybe I could get one of these on the plane home.
Yeah.
Nope. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's dive in a little bit around Perini Ranch and this amazing property. Guys, I wish you could see where we are at right now. When Chef Peter first told me we were going to Perini Ranch Steakhouse, I thought that's great. I've never been to Texas before. This will be really cool. My eyes were open. I was ready. Guys, this is a steakhouse on a ranch. Like hardcore steakhouse on a ranch. It's beautiful. We spent probably 10 minutes outside earlier, and I didn't even want to come inside. Like, Texas is just such a beautiful state. But tell me a little bit about this place, the property. I mean, this little town, Buffalo Gap, your Texan cuisine. Walk us through, how did Perini Ranch Steakhouse kind of form?
Well, my father bought this ranch in 1952 when I was a young boy. And he bought it because we have a little bitty mountain range. And, you know, in Texas, we call, 300-foot high hills, mountains, that laugh in Colorado. But there really is, Buffalo Gap, there really is a gap in the mountains where the buffalo would travel through. And in the spring, they would come from the south, and in the winter, they'd come back through. So that's where the name came from. But Buffalo Gap is a nice little town. I think it's 460 people. Where we are, the steakhouse, this was an old barn. We've added on to it since. But we're not on the highway. I mean, it's not something that you drive by and see. You've got to know where you're going. And, when we first opened this up, it took about 12 years for it to really work, because we didn't follow any of the plans, where you're supposed to be on a corner or in a downtown area. You'll hear this, we did the steakhouse in this old barn that was, 200 yards off the road. And so it took a long time for it to work, but when it worked, all of these things that I thought were negative became positives, because people love to come out. And so we have big live oak trees, and it really is a beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk food, my favorite thing.
Yes.
Your menu, how has it changed since you first opened this place, or has it not? What are some of those staples, those items you really, really cling to?
I will try to make this short, but when we opened this steakhouse in 1983, there was a barn. The kind of food that we had prepared, where we were cooking prime ribs and big pots of beans and stuff, I thought, this is great, this is what we'll do. And we opened with a Big Chief tablet for our different items. And it was very simple. We did not want to do anything. We did not want to fix French fries or baked potatoes, because everybody else was. So we developed our own line of vegetables that we still use to this day. And because we had to break free from a lot of the big chains and things like that. So it was a very simple menu. And beef, of course, has always been the center of the plate. And so this is how it has developed. Now the steakhouse menus are larger, and our catering menus are pretty impressive. But the steakhouse has basically stayed the same. Elisa?
For sure. I think the steakhouse is really focused on what it's true to its roots, I guess. And we cook the way we like to eat. We're not afraid to season. We're not afraid to, if it's spicy or salty, it's meant to be because that's how we like it. And so we love to cook and we love to eat and we love to share that at the table. And our customers seem to enjoy it too. So I think that's the one thing. And we make everything from scratch, as opposed to a lot of restaurants that aren't able to do that anymore. We have, we get in here at 7 in the morning and there's a team that's making salad dressings and making desserts and everything's made here on site, and we're really proud of what we serve.
And when you come in the morning, we have fires built outside. We're making our own coals to cook with. And so when we cook a steak, good beef, certified Angus, we put our own steak rub on it. We have a mesquite pit that we put coals in, but we also have a little flame. We put in a little wood so we have flame. So when you put that steak on the grill, it's kissed, I guess is the word, with the flame. And so it gets great color and a little char. And now all of those flavors really make a good steak.
Oh, I'm going to start drooling in a second. I wasn't hungry until now. That's amazing.
So to brag on you guys, I mean, from a chef standpoint, when I first met you, and we were coming out here to Premier Ranch, every chef in the back of their mind, when they go somewhere, they said, I want to see one thing that I've never seen before that is probably a game changer, something that you can emulate and copy and that type of thing. So we had lunch here one day, and one of the steak sides was a green chili cheese hominy. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, that was a game changer for me, and I loved that. And I told Tom, I'm going to be famous off of this dish. I'm going to take this recipe, and I'm going to share it in every place I've ever gone. And I've, introduced that. Chef Tony, one day we were talking, and he said, show me something I haven't seen before. So I said, oh, okay. And we did that. And I said, it's hominy. And he said, no, you're not. Don't be serving that stuff over here. I do not like hominy, do not want hominy, and no, it's not going to go. I said, just let me make it, and then you can tell me. It's a staple at our place now. And we show it to all these steakhouses and people, and we share it and include you in the storytelling, because that's
not what I heard. I heard it was Chef Peter's hominy.
I was going to talk to you about that.
Well, we're on recording right
now. So we'll discuss this later.
Sounds good. But it's funny about the hominy, because when we serve it on a buffet especially, people will go, these are the best potatoes I've ever had, or look at the mac and cheese with green chilies. And we usually don't say anything and just kind of nod, and then they go, this was amazing. And we go, we know it's hominy. And they're like, what? What are you talking about, hominy? What is hominy?
But now think about this story. That is not the normal thing that you might now after talking, but we had to break out of the mold. I say like a baked potato. We really don't want to do a baked potato. We love them. But in the old days, they had some kind of contraption they'd put on the table that had fake sour cream and fake bacon and whatever.
Remember the 3-compartment thing?
Drove me crazy. And I said, we're not having that on the table. We do a potato. It's a cowboy potato that has, a little bacon fat, grease, or whatever you want to call it now. But I mean, it's cut up and it's wonderful, but we don't have that funny little contraption that goes on the table.
Maybe we should bring those back. I don't think anybody has those anymore.
I don't think you could buy those anymore. It was like a little yellow lemon. I'm
going to offend somebody.
Or little yellow lemon wraps.
Well, so when I think one thing that has helped us in what we're doing is we had to do something to get people to come out here.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not a bad drive. It's a 20-minute drive from Abilene. But to get people to come out here, you have to do something that's different, because there are lots of great restaurants and steakhouses.
We like the kid that, when you look up destination restaurant in the dictionary, there's a little tiny picture of Perini Ranch in there, because it is just, you can't explain a destination restaurant any more than this. And I went to a marketing seminar one time with the Restaurant Association, and they said, if you're marketing more than 5 miles outside your front door, you're wasting your time. And I was like, I'm in the wrong seminar, because there's nobody 5 miles from our front door.
Right. No, you have to get people out here. I mean,
Yep.
Tom, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. You were doing something so off the beaten path that what you once thought was maybe going to be a negative is now such a positive. I mean,
Well, we do a demographic deal every year, and 60% of our business is in with 150 miles of here.
wow.
60%.
That's what we call local, is 150 mile.
30%.
That's Texas local.
30% is outside of that, and 10% is outside of Texas. So, we have people that drive in that pass 10 steakhouses, and they just.
But then the
enjoy it.
pressure's on, and that's where the hard part comes in, because they have such an expectation that we really are. It's true pressure to deliver every time. We try hard.
But you're a destination steakhouse,
Yes.
and you have people have a definite memory of a great experience that they had every time they come, and every time they leave, they talk about the next time when they're coming back. Unlike a golfer who has a really bad round of golf, still comes back to play.
Yeah.
Over here, they never have a bad experience. It's consistent. It's always been consistent, and it continues to be a legacy.
And consistent is one of your. I'm going to use the word prime or choice, but it's a word that in our business is very, very important. And if you're not consistent,
Well, it's
you're
part of
through.
our daily vocabulary around here, and it has to be every day.
And so, Peter,
Absolutely.
when we started this, when Lisa and I got married, we were both very involved with the Texas Restaurant Association, and we had a lot of people. We had the steakhouse was here, and a lot of people wanted us to become a chain. And Lisa and I stopped, and we said, and I said, I really don't want to be a chain, and Lisa said the same. But we've decided that we want to be as good as you can be, or the best with one restaurant. And for us, it has worked. If there was a Perini's down the highway 20 miles from now, why would you come here? So this whole feeling of being on the ranch and being with the live oaks and being in this little funny building and people coming in and having fun and celebrations and kids out on the patio. I grew up in the old days where they would have a concrete dance floor and yellow light bulbs, and people would be out and they'd be drinking a cold beer, and mom and dad would be sitting having a cold beer, and granddad would be on the dance floor with the kids on his feet dancing. And I've never forgotten that. Lo and behold, we just happened to have one in the backyard. But it works. It is that old time feeling.
It's a romance.
It's a romance, and I don't know if you remember that, but children would actually stand on the parents' feet, when they were dancing and stuff.
Oh, I used to do that with my dad all the time.
Well, and that's
You just pulled my heartstrings, Tom.
No, but that is that wonderful. So when people come out and see it, I had one story I'm going to tell quick, but a lady was here and she said, Mr. Perini, I said, I'm hearing a sound that it brings back a memory to me, and I don't know what it is. And I said, what is it? And I kept listening, and she said, oh, that was it. And I said, that's a screen door closing. Now think about that. That's a screen door closing.
Yep.
It's a country thing.
Oh, I grew up in Wayne. Yeah, I know what a screen door closing sounds like.
But how it slaps.
Yes.
And so when you're here and you're saying that brings back memories with you dancing, and all these things, that's the experience. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
And then you have a good meal on top of it, and you're going to come back.
Oh, you just feel so comforted and at home.
Well, I think to both of yours credit, Lisa, you and Tom, both of you have taken it one step further. Your customers have become your friends, and your friends have become like family. And when somebody gets married or somebody wants to have an event or something like that, you guys actually go and cater this. So you didn't need to have multiple chain operations, because your business is driven by the people that love you, and you fill that void.
And we're not opposed to chains, but for our operation here and for what we are doing, this works for us. And there's lots of restaurants, and a lot of restaurants with good food, and we're very thankful for that. But this just happened to be our niche, and we work very hard with it, and it's just kind of grown, we have a catering business, and we have guest quarters, and we have, just all kinds of different things that have spurred off of all this concept, but it's working. And so here we are.
So tell me a little bit about your catering business. When did that seed get planted? How did you branch from this one brick and mortar concept to let's take this ranch food off the ranch?
Well,
Yeah, it started the other way around, really. Catering first.
we started catering first. So years ago, I was in the commercial cattle business, Black Angus, and we had a big operation up around Stamford, Texas, and I really didn't have a real background in the cattle business, so it happened when my father passed away. I didn't know what to do, and so came back, and I did that. But the cattle business is a hard business, and so I found out that you can buy the best horse, the best saddle, the best boots, the best spurs, the best leggings, the best everything, and get on that horse, and that does not make you a cowboy. To be a cowboy, you have to have cow sense. You have to be raised in the country. You've got to be able to look at that cow and see know which way it's going to break to, or how to do it. And I didn't have that. And when I finished in the business, I had it. But during that early time, we had ranch chuck wagon, and so I'd go out and take the wagon out, and after we made our first drag with cattle, I'd go and start cooking lunch or whatever. And so that's how I got started in the chuck wagon deal. And then a lot of the big ranches around us, SMS Ranch, the Pitchfork, the Sixes, the Matador, all these big ranches had retired their chuck wagons. They were taking food out in a pickup and with ice chest in the back, and that's what they were doing. And so they would call us, or call me at the time, and say, we want a party for 200 people for a horse sale, or we're celebrating something, but we want you to bring the wagon. And he said, we'll supply the mesquite wood and the beef, and you bring your cowboys. So we'd go over there and we'd do it, we'd cook, and that's how it started. So that same method of cooking that's what has come to the steakhouse. And so we've catered, now, honestly, all over the world. And it's a big part of our business. So besides having the steakhouse, and then we have a catering crew, and now we have a mail order business, and it's all, but everything's tied around beef. That's the one thing that binds it.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So Tom, there's a saying, have knives will travel.
Yes.
And so I'm going to throw a bone at you real fast, yeah? So when I travel, I take my knives and put them in my suitcase, and they get packed inside. When you travel, and we talking travel, you went to Japan, what did you take? Chuck wagon. Tell us about that.
In 1990, the Texas Beef Council sent us over to Japan and to bring U.S. beef to Japan. And so we had now what we call a container. We took 2 containers. We had a chuck wagon in one, and tents and shovels, and in another one we had mesquite wood and all this stuff, so we could cook in Japan. We got our beef from the Panhandle. We shipped it from San Diego to Tokyo. I think it took 30 days to get it there. All the meat packed in ice. And then with our crew from the Texas Beef Council and Richard Wortham and all these names from the past, we went out and we would set up. Matter of fact, Richard bought my knives and stuff in Tokyo. And so we would go out to the country and we would set up at different stores, and we'd set the chuck wagon up and we'd cook prime rib, and here are all these cowboys, and they didn't know what to expect when they saw us. But at that time, they were getting all their beef from Australia. And it was all frozen, grass-fed. And so we come in, so we have 30 days on all these prime ribs that were at that point choice. And so we'd cook them and we'd slice them and cut them up in little pieces, and people would taste them, and they loved it. we had a band called Charlie Nagatoni and the Cannonballs. And they would sing songs all in English, and I promise you that they did not know one word that were saying. One of them I laughed was, making love in all the wrong places.
Rookie.
Yeah, that's. But that was their song, and I know they didn't have any idea what they were singing. So that was their favorite. But so we were there 2 weeks. We traveled all over Japan. It was like a circus. We would move and set up and cook. We would move and set up and cook.
That's still what catering is like.
It is. But we did this in Japan in 1990. And when we came home, we found out that one of the people that owned a big grocery store chain had been one of the people that came to our wagon.
Wow.
And they started putting in small cases. I'm talking about a case that might be 3 feet by 3 feet of U.S. beef. In history, I mean, it's, Japan is a great source of our American product. And so what the Beef Council wanted to achieve, we achieved. But having the excitement, go to Japan with Texas cowboys and chuck wagons and leggings and fire and smoke. I mean, it was.
Talk about colliding cultures.
Oh, boy, it was, but they had a good time and we had a good time and we achieved what we wanted to do.
That's awesome.
And that's good.
That's incredible.
When you talk about colliding cultures, the U.S. Meat Export and Texas Beef Council used to bring, it's very big on education. And so every time they brought a group in, part of the education was coming here to Perini Ranch and bringing people and showing them an actual working ranch of a sort and the restaurant and the magic behind it. And I can guarantee you that if you asked any one of those thousands of people that have been through here what their funnest event was, what the best time they ever had, it would be a visit to Perini Ranch.
But it was honest. It was when they came out here, or we took them to the Matthews Ranch, or wherever the Texas Beef Council would send us. It was that we were being honest. It was true. It wasn't. It was really the truth, and people know that. And so it did work. And we haven't done anything for the Beef Council in a long time. I know they've done a great job. And a lot of the people that we worked with are no longer there. But they have done a great job and been a great help to the beef business.
Amen to that.
That's awesome. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you guys have had some awesome award opportunities and just opportunities to do some amazing things. I mean, James Beard Award, cooking for the White House. Like, what like wow memory, I can't believe we got to do that, to this day still stands out in your mind?
Well, anytime you cook for the President of the United States, that's a wow memory. And we cooked for Governor Bush for several years. When he became president, he was kind enough to invite us to cook for him. And I'm not going to go into the story much, but our first time we cooked for him happened to be 9/11.
As president. First time as president.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was not the time to be in Washington. And so, of course, the party was canceled. It was a party for 1,400 people on the South Lawn of the White House. And, of course, that was when the world came to a standstill. And we were there for 4 or 5 days before we could even get out. And the president could not have been nicer. But after that, we came back the next year and catered the party. And then he invited us to cater. We catered a party for the President of Russia, the President of China, the President of Mexico, all of these people that you get back and you look, there are times now that we kind of sit back and laugh and said, did we really do these things? But we did. And the one thing is, there's a level of stress there that, when you're cooking for the President of the United States and the President of Russia, boy, you better be right. This isn't the time to experiment. And so but looking back, and you said, which ones do we remember? But besides, those are famous people. But we have cooked for literally thousands of people in catering all over the United States. In New York City and in
Yeah.
all over the United States, taking chuck wagons and cowboys. But we've tried to be true. We have tried to be, when we cooked at the White House, they said, oh, I said, we need some help. And they said, oh, we've got a lot of Texans up here, and we'll just get them some straw hats. And I said, no. I said, we want real cowboys. I want to bring cowboys up from Taylor County and Shackelford County, and I wanted a cowboy that knew how to take his hat off to a lady. And they said, okay. And we brought these cowboys up, and of course, 9/11 it didn't work, but we did come back with them. But that is the excitement. That's the true. That's
Tom, and then there was that time that the chef at the White House thought it would be a good idea if you served chicken. Do you remember that morning?
Matter of fact, I did.
That was a scary day.
That is never a good idea.
It was not. It was not a good idea.
So we went. This is before 9/11, but so we went up. Lisa and we were there, and they took us to the Roosevelt map room, which is in the bottom, and there used to be an oval table that was President Roosevelt's map table. It was gone, and these chairs were in an oval, and so we were there, and there were these different women that were in charge of things, and men in Secret Service, and
It was the planning meeting for the
planning
party
meeting
in
for the
September.
party, and the chef was there, and it's kind of awkward because you're sitting there and there's no arms on the chair, and where do you put your hands, and there's not a place to write, and so they started the meeting, and we asked some questions, and the chef said, all right, what are you going to fix to the president? And I said, well, this is what he wants. And I said he wanted tenderloin, and we fixed fried catfish, and we had the hominy, and I forgot what else, bread pudding or whatever it was. And I said, that's what he's asked for. And the chef now said, Tom, you're in Washington, D.C., you've got to fix some chicken. And I said, no, sir, I'm not. And the room went deathly quiet. Lisa started getting her bag and saying,
Let's pack my purse. I thought it was nice to have had a meeting at the White House because this is as far as it's going to go.
And so everybody else was kind of going, twiddling their thumbs, and then we continued the meeting. But we were fortunate to that evening to have dinner with the president and the first lady, and there were about 10 of us. We had dinner, and during the course of the dinner, the first lady, Mrs. Bush, turned and said, how was the chef? And I said, a little chefy. And that was it. And I was sincere about that. And the next morning when I went down, the chef, you would have thought I was his brother that had been lost in the Bataan Death March. He said, I loved your menu. I think it's fine, and I know somebody got a telephone call.
He changed his tune.
Well, and we did fix some other things, not chicken, but we tell the story because it was, being in this business, we're not cooking chicken.
There was
There are
no
other things,
chicken.
we're fine with catfish, but there's just something about chicken we're not doing.
Absolutely. So I could sit here and talk to y'all all day. I'm learning so much, but we have eventually got to let you get back with your day. But tonight is a super awesome celebration. We at Certified Angus Beef are super, super excited to have awarded Perini Ranch Steakhouse with the Legendary Steakhouse Award this year at our annual conference. And we come down here to celebrate, but kind of looking back on your legacy. I mean, most restaurants don't really last past 5 years. You guys have made it tenfold. Sitting here thinking about all these awesome memories, what does that mean? Tell us about how it feels to kind of look back on that moment and realize you're not only kicking but surviving.
Well, I started this by saying I think she said we're old. I think we should finish this, but I think she said we're old.
I did not say they were old.
I think she said we're old. I don't know how to describe it. It's
We have tried to be true to word term mission, and that's overused, but we have tried to be true and do the best job we can do for everything, whether it's service or food or anything. And that's why we have lasted this long, because that feeling that we have is also enjoyed by the people who come out here and have dinner. And I think that's the reason. I think that's the reason it's lasted this long. And we plan, and we're not planning on shutting this thing down either. I mean, we're going. And so, but I think being true and doing the best job you can and just being true to what you're doing. What else? Help me.
I think you're right, and like I said, we love to cook, we love to eat, we love to serve people, and it's a lot like work, but we sure enjoy doing it.
But we're very flattered. We've received some very nice awards, and so I'm gonna tell you one as a finishing story. The James Beard Award. So when the James Beard House notified us that we were getting this award, and it was for what, the best
American classic.
American classic. She's already started to cry.
Which again means you're old if you're a classic.
Honey, quit bringing this up. So we were going to get this award, and so I asked Lisa to call up, and it was going to be a medallion, and I asked Lisa to ask if we could get 2 medallions, be one for Lisa and one for me, and they said no. Said Tom's the one that started the restaurant; he gets a medallion. So we said all right. And so black tie, it's in New York,
Lincoln Center. Pretty fancy.
Kind of walking down the red carpet deal. I mean, it was a big deal.
Right.
There were 2,000 or 3,000 people there, and a lot of great big chefs, and I mean, these boys were the big boys, and we're coming from the country, and so Lisa gets all dolled up and looks beautiful, and I have my cowboy hat on and boots, and they call her name, and we walk out onto the stage, and they, I forget the chef, but he said who we were and what we're doing, and so he put this medallion around my neck. I took my hat off and put the medallion around. And so I thanked everybody from the James Beard House, and I think we've cooked there, 7 or 8 times. I mean, a lot of times for Texas boys. And so I said thank you and how much we appreciated it and how they'd helped us and what we had done. And then I asked Lisa, I said, hold my hat, and she did, and I took the medallion off and put it around her neck.
Aww.
So she's crying, just like she is right now. And the crowd went crazy.
Great.
We had 2,000 or 3,000 people standing up and cheering. And I thought, what have we done? And so after the event, I went downstairs, and Lisa was kind of up watching me, and I was completely surrounded by people, a lot of them women.
He was the most sought after gentleman in New York City that night.
I'm sure he was.
No, but they said they didn't know that chivalry still existed. And I thought, this wasn't a planned deal. This is Lisa didn't know.
This is who you guys are.
Lisa didn't know it was going to happen. And then finally Lisa said, come on, dummy. You've had enough of this. But it was one of those wonderful nights. And then we went out and celebrated and partied. And
We did.
And so
It was fun.
but we've had a lot of fun things and a lot of things written, and and that's fun. But all of that's kind of part of what happens.
That's amazing. Wow. I could not, Peter, I don't know about you, but I could not have thought of a better way to spend my Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, this is great reunion. Rosemary and I have been friends with Tom and Lisa for
A long time.
And you talk about being old. Well, I'm still a young kid. So
What is that kind of white in your beard? You missed with the shoe polish.
we're not going to talk about that today, Tom. But it's just been awesome to see you guys just grow and as humbly as you are, continue to connect with people, and it's just a pleasure to see that you guys are not only in business to be in business, but you have a legacy, and you have pleased so many people over the years with memories and things that they reminisce, talk about.
Well, thank you.
And educate.
We appreciate that.
The education that you have shared and the knowledge that you shared with our industry makes you guys who and what you are, and we're just proud to be
Well, thank
partners with you, and love you guys so much.
And we appreciate everything you all have done. You know, with the Certified Angus program, this has really helped us because it's given us the consistency that we need.
It's
And that is a
that
very
commitment
important.
to quality and consistency is what we try to do every day, as we said earlier. But with CAB, we know that when we put that on the table, we have as close to that as you can have without something that's manufactured. So it's just a perfect scenario for our business. And now we are introducing Certified Angus Beef Prime, which we love, and we're thrilled to share it with our customers.
And we also have the choice.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's a fun time.
So, and we're proud to be part of the team.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Tom.
You are the team.
We are the team.
We're part of it, but we're glad to be part of it.
And with that, if you ever find yourself anywhere near Buffalo Gap, Texas, I strongly encourage that you make the drive to Perini Ranch Steakhouse, see what it's like to have a beautiful certified Angus beef steak in God's country.
You're going to stick around Texas, I can tell.
You might just have me. This girl from Ohio might just come back to Texas.
That's great.
She just might.
Might just be a wedding coming up here sometime soon.
Don't
Need a
say
caterer.
that. My boyfriend listens to this podcast. He doesn't need any more pressure.
Chuck Wagon.
We
Wagon
got you
wedding
covered
coming
there.
Awesome. All right, guys, tune in to Meat Speak Podcast powered by the Certified Angus Beef brand. Check us out. Download this episode. Remember to subscribe, review, like, share us on social. Give us lots of love, and we'll keep telling the beefy stories.
Back here on the Meat Speak Podcast, powered by the Certified Angus Beef brand. Brian Schaaf, Chef Tony Biggs, meat scientist Diana Clark, and Paige Clayton, the social media guru, coming to you in studio at the inner sanctum of the world headquarters of premium beef, Certified Angus Beef. Feels good. Feels good. Just rolls off the tongue. That said, Tom and Lisa Perini, two of my most favorite, most genuine humans you'll ever meet. The story, I know Tom talked about it on stage at the James Beard Awards in 2014 when, you know what, Beard Foundation, we love you. We know that you guys have rules that you have to follow, so you can only give out one medal. And for Tom to take that medal and put it on Lisa's neck, I mean,
That's a man right there.
So classy.
That's a man.
When he told that story in Buffalo Gap, she is sitting at the other side of the table still crying, and that story is nearing 10 years old. Like, it was just
love it. I love it.
That's amazing.
classy.
It's so good. So Buffalo Gap, and right, one of the things, you know, we are lucky to be doing a podcast in this day and age where people have this little tool called Google, right? We want you to go and look for those other materials that we talk about, right? We want to send you down those rabbit holes. And Perini Ranch is a rabbit hole, right? It's less than 500 people. They're also home to the Buffalo Gap Wine and Food Festival, which actually brings some of the greatest chefs on the entire planet come in for this thing, right? It's amazing, and at such a tiny town. But Paige, something that you said that jumped out at me, you know, they're not on the beaten path, right? This is a destination, so much so that you said people would come up to the restaurant on horseback, correct?
Yeah. So Perini Ranch Steakhouse really is on a ranch. I don't know exactly what I was expecting to walk into, but it was going to find a ranch, and there happened to be a steakhouse on it.
That's awesome.
I would say it's in like this little one stoplight town, but to be honest, I don't even know if I saw a stoplight in Buffalo Gap. And people come from all over. They have a couple of different houses on the property that you can rent. Like, it really is a destination. And when I sat down at the awards dinner with some of their loyal customers, I mean, some of these guys had been eating there for 20 and 30 years. I was sat next to a guy who brings his kids to the restaurant because his dad brought him to the restaurant.
Cool.
And they're not close. Nothing in that part of Texas is really close by. I mean, it's a 45-minute drive to the steakhouse, and that's their Saturday night as a family, and that's what they want to keep doing, and they'll keep doing it.
I love it.
Warms the heart, right? makes you feel good all over. So just so we're clear, and you can rewind, right? It's always good to go back and listen to past episodes, right? The episode we did, I guess about a month and a half ago or so with our pal Daniel Vaughn from Texas Monthly. Obviously very barbecue centric, and when people think about barbecue, they think about Texas, right? I mean, Texas-style barbecue is the most popular form of Q honestly in the entire world in a lot of ways. I mean, you look at, I think he actually said when a new barbecue restaurant opens, of course they're doing Texas style, but Texas much, much more so than just barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
Diana, do you guys have some favorite Texas style restaurants that are not barbecue when you're down there? I mean, a billion of them jump to mind, but I'll throw it to you guys first.
Yeah, I mean, Taste of Texas, of course. That's like the
Legends.
first thing that pops in. Just the experience there is phenomenal. I will have to say, back to my meat judging days, because Amarillo was like the first place we'd always go to. The Big Texan. We went there quite often whenever we were in Amarillo, given our budget and everything like that. And we were amazed by that 72-ounce sirloin steak that was eaten. But I never accepted the challenge, definitely not. But kind of tempted to try it, I'd say, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a hot pepper on the plate, not a pickle. Just to let everyone know that. Okay? Just let's clear the air on that one.
Speaking from experience.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what? I know it's they're big. There's a lot of units, but I love the saltgrass.
Oh, I know.
It's again there are, and I forget how many. I think there's like 100 of them. Across Texas. It's big. It's also extremely consistent though. So it's if I'm ever needing some late night snacks, right?
I've definitely tried to get them to put an establishment in Worcester.
Yeah, right.
Did not work,
right.
but I tried very
Right.
hard.
And of course, Whataburger, right?
Yeah. Oh,
love
yes.
the Whataburger,
Yes.
right?
And don't forget Buc-ee's, okay?
Cleanest restaurant.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? Buc-ee's is huge.
Buc-ee's is amazing.
They're growing countrywide.
So
You can get anything from a brisket sandwich to sausage to a pack of matches, okay? And even armadillos, not real ones, but like
Yeah,
statues,
yes,
okay?
yes.
Have you ever seen the armadillos run across your, car, like right in front of you?
No.
In Texas?
Yes.
They have yes. A huge armadillos, right?
it's kind of crazy.
And the other thing I love about it is ZZ Top. I mean, I love ZZ Top, right? And they love steak. They love steak, those guys, right? So they come on, they know their beef.
Sign 'em up, sign 'em up.
Music, they know their beef.
Right. I will tell you, last time I was in Texas, my rental car, there was a tumbleweed blowing, right? And I thought, no big deal. Tumbleweeds are very heavy, actually. And if they blow and hit your car as they're moving, they'll actually do some damage. I was a little surprised by that. So
Okay.
if you're ever walking and a tumbleweed is coming at you,
Run.
I would recommend stepping out of the way.
We did not see an armadillo or a tumbleweed, but I did see my first cactus.
How about a
in
rattlesnake?
Texas.
Did you see a rattlesnake?
No, we did not. But Chef Peter decides we have a couple hours on Tuesday to walk around. So we go to Abilene State Park. Highly recommend if you ever have a free afternoon in that area. So we're walking around, and I've got like jeans on and flats. Okay, I'm an Ohio girl. I was not raised to work in the cattle world, and I have these flats on. And Chef Peter's like, "Hey, watch your step. Make sure you're looking around." And I'm like, okay. And then he looks at me and he goes, "No." He goes, "The temperature dropped last night, so the rattlesnakes will be like looking to take cover." I said, "Chef Peter, that is a really important piece of information that I should have known before I
Throw
packed."
in there.
Right? I mean, it's like playing golf in Texas too. You hit your ball left into the weeds, into the tumbleweeds. Heck, if I'm gonna go find that, I mean, right?
On that note, we're going to go ahead and put a bow on this episode. If this is your first time listening to the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand, know that you can find us across all of your major podcasting platforms, including Google Play, Apple, and Spotify. If you could jump on the Apple icon, that's the little purple guy on your Apple phones, because I just assume that the entire world is using Apple phones. I'm probably incorrect. in
You'd
that,
be
but
surprised.
There's a lot of them, though,
yeah,
right?
it's Android is.
It's
It's
up
got
there,
some.
huh?
It's got some business.
Interesting. I haven't ventured there yet. But if you could give us a star rating, preferably 5, leave us a review. And actually, I've learned that the review doesn't actually mean anything. It's more so the act of writing out an actual review, right? So keep us entertained. Give us something random if you would, right? I
Please.
love the deep thought. So until next time, we appreciate you tuning into the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand. For Paige, the social media guru, Chef Tony Biggs, meat scientist Dana Clark, I'm Brian Schaaf. We'll see you later.